Representative Harrison rise.
To debate the bill?
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So much to say, ladies and gentlemen of the House, about all of this, but I'm going to start with the process because I don't think that's seen a lot of attention yet. This is highly irregular. We have had a very truncated schedule with less than 24 hours between publication of the map and the beginning of the discussion and the debate in the Senate. The public has had very little time to process and understand what we're doing here today. And we could have done it earlier because, as Representative Morey pointed out, this was started by the President, a directive to Texas. Texas started in June or July, and so we've had plenty of time to get an earlier start on this, but I'm not going to go deep into that. But I do want to point out, so thank you, Representative Helfrich, for pointing out that since yesterday and today we had another 1,000 comments, totaling 12,215. I want to compare that to 2021 and 2020, where we had 1,000 in 2021 and 600 in 2023. And out of those 12,215, and deep gratitude to my legislative assistant for going through most of them, she's found 3 in favor of these maps. 3. I want to talk about the public hearings. As was mentioned, there were just 2 here, both in Raleigh. Back in 2011, we had 65. In 2021, we had 14 in each congressional district. And then when we redrew in 2023, we did have 3 geographically spread out in the state. So folks have not had an opportunity to present in person, and you know how much of a difference that makes if you've attended these. So I'll just say there's been inadequate time for the legislators and the public to review. In those comments, I'll just highlight the most common mentioned themes: process, request for a nonpartisan independent redistricting process, no to gerrymandering, that's the high point. Lots of comments about race and the racist nature of the maps, the fact that we should be working on the budget and other state high priorities, and a big chunk of folks who talk about the current president. I want to remind you that this map we are considering today, in a state with a history of the most gerrymandered maps in the country, we now have the most gerrymandered and least responsive map in the state's history before you. 84% of the public has expressed objections to the partisan nature of our redistricting process. I also want to talk on the substance. I want to talk to you about the fact that we still have a Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. We don't know for how long, but it was recently reaffirmed in the Allen v. Milligan case that took place in Alabama 2 years ago. This requires an opportunity to draw districts for black voters to elect a candidate of their choice. As has been mentioned, this map clearly carves out the black belt, and has been mentioned whether the sponsor used racial data or not. He knows the districts well enough to know that he was splitting up the black belt. He continued, and I'm saying I mean Senator Heiss, because he's the one that drew the map. No personal attack, just attack here, just observing the process. He continued to claim throughout the process in the Senate and in yesterday's committee that we have no evidence of racially polarized voting in our state. But it's been some time since the last racially polarized voting analysis has been performed. And it was repeated in the Allen v. Milligan case that needs to be performed to understand localized racially polarized voting. So y'all remember, those of you who were here back in 2023 redraw, we did have one racially polarized voting analysis performed by the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. And they only had a week to do it, so it was very truncated. But that was in response to the fact that the lack of our performing our own. That found significantly racially polarized voting in this very area where we are getting ready to carve up the black voters into 2 different districts. They also, Senator Heiss also stated that there was no need to prove the Jingles criteria because those weren't present either. But I want to repeat to you all what the Jingles criteria are, because the Southern Coalition for Social Justice says that that area of the state actually meets the Jingles criteria. So and I'm sorry, I'm not going to take up much of your time. I just think these are important points to make and to be considered as we get ready to approve this map. So the first is that a minority group must be able to demonstrate that it's sufficiently large and compact to constitute a majority of a single member district. Second, it must be able to show that it's politically cohesive. Third, it must be able to demonstrate that the white majority votes significantly as a block to enable it to defeat the minority's preferred candidate. And those criteria have been met. And we probably could have proved it ourselves if we had taken the time to go through the racially polarized voting analysis that was needed. So I will just, move along here to my next point. And has been stated, this particular district these two congressional districts that are being redrawn, have the longest legacy of black leadership in the state's history and the highest concentration of black voters. Representative Alma Adams said that yesterday in committee, and the former Representative Eva Clayton, who spoke at the committee, also pointed this out. This is really important to take into consideration. Representative Clayton, former Representative Clayton, was the first black woman to represent North Carolina in our history in Congress, and she was the first black elected to Congress from North Carolina since 1901. So, as been pointed out by Representative Pierce and others, we have strong black leadership fighting for the causes and the values that area of the state cares about the most, and are going to be most affected by the current leadership. So I just want to say that we are clear violation of the Voting Rights Act and likely are going to engage in litigation. So why is that important? Because this state, since the majority party, again, with all due respect, started drawing maps in 2011, we spent $22,512,000 on redistricting litigation, and probably more, but that's related to outside counsel. Article 1, Section 2, Sovereignty of the People. All political power is vested in and derived from the people. All government of right originates from the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. Is this map for the good of the whole? I contend that it's not. We're clearly carving up an area that is going to lose a long legacy of terrific leadership. We have a 12-2 map with 0 competitive districts in a 50-50 state. Nope, it's not for the good of the whole. I encourage my colleagues to vote no on this map. Thank you.
For what purpose, the lady from Orange, Representative Price?